innovative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket.
Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking up to that.
And these stories need to be told. And they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India, for the world, the India Story. The show for the global citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is another edition of World DNA. I'm Shivan Chandna.
Hello and welcome. I'm Aditi Singh, and as the Israel-Hamas war rages, the Qatari PM has said that a hostage deal is close to fruition with only logistical issues remaining. Now, while the death toll in Gaza continues to rise, Israel continues its operations in the Al-Shifa hospital compound, releasing new footage of a tunnel allegedly under the hospital compound. We are tracking all that's happening in the war.
Well, the Israel-Hamas war definitely remains our top focus. We're also bringing you updates from Argentina, where a new president with rather radical views has been elected. Libertarian outsider Javier Milei has been sworn in to fix an economy battered by triple-digit inflation, a looming recession and rising poverty. We will get you a roundup of all the developments coming in from this and a lot more right here on World DNA. But first, let's get you started with the headlines.
Israel's military releases security camera footage, claims that it shows hostages being brought into Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City on October 7 after being kidnapped during Hamas's attacks on southern Israel.
Hamas gunmen battle Israeli forces trying to push into Gaza's largest refugee camp. But despite the fighting, US and Israeli officials say that a deal to free some of the hostages held in the besieged enclave is edging closer.
Argentina elects Libertarian outsider Javier Milei as its new president, rolling the dice on an outsider with radical views to fix an economy battered by triple-digit inflation, a looming recession and rising poverty.
Former US First Lady Rosalynn Carter, the wife of ex-President Jimmy Carter, dies at 96. The Carter Center confirms that she died peacefully with her family by her side.
Australia breaks the hearts of 1.4 billion Indians to claim an unprecedented sixth World Cup title, and Travis Head scored a century in the final to take Australia to a 6-wicket victory in Ahmedabad. We we'll begin with the latest that's coming from the Israel-Hamas war. In the conflict, as it escalates with every passing minute and there is no end in sight, in Gaza, the number of civilian casualties is increasing every day. In the latest, a large explosion and flying flares were seen over the Gaza Strip as the battle between Israel and Hamas rages on. The images captured are reportedly of heavy clashes in northern Gaza.
The source of the explosion or the flares have not been confirmed yet. Now, 31 premature babies have been safely transferred from Gaza's main hospital to another hospital in the south. The joint operation by the United Nations and Palestinian Red Crescent moved the babies in incubators to Rafah, near the border crossing into Egypt. Now, this comes as the fate of the newborns at Al-Shifa Hospital captured global attention after the release of images showing doctors trying to keep them warm. According to Gaza health officials, the babies will be moved to Egypt after they are stabilized in Rafah. The health officials further added that 8 premature babies had died in Al-Shifa due to lack of power and medicines.
نحن الآن وبعد ساعات من العناء والتنسيق وصل الطاقم الطبي، وصل طبيب، ووصل التمريض الأربعة الذين كانوا موجودين معهم، والعدد النهائي الذي وصلنا 31 طفل. هم كانوا بالأساس 39، استشهد منهم 8 أطفال، كان آخرهم هذا الصباح 2 في مجمع الشفاء الطبي. الآن في منهم حالتهم حرجة، تم وضع واحد منهم الآن على
On the other hand, Israel has published video of what it described as a tunnel dug by Palestinian militants under the Gaza Strip's biggest hospital. The Israeli military said that it discovered a 55-meter tunnel which was 33 feet underneath the Al-Shifa hospital complex. Now further adding that the tunnel complex included a staircase, a blast-proof door and a firing hole that could be used by snipers to block Israeli forces from entering.
Now, the Al-Shifa hospital has become a focal point for Israel's subsequent military operations in the Gaza Strip. Now, Israel's military has released security camera footage where it claims to show hostages being brought into the hospital on the 7th of October after being kidnapped during Hamas attacks on southern Israel.
This is 7th of October, 10:55 a.m. The evidence I will share was sent by Israel to diplomatic channels to the countries of those civilians. Here you can see Hamas taking a hostage inside the vicinity. He doesn't look need a treatment, but they're taking him inside the hospital. I will now share this video that shows the same hostage entering into the hospital with a gunman, terrorist, inside the hospital. This is the main entrance of the hospital.
And as the war between Israel and Hamas militants rage on to the 7th week, Gazans mourned the death of Palestinian journalist Hassan Naslim, who was among 31 people killed in an Israeli strike in central Gaza. Another local journalist, Sari Mansour, was also killed in the strike.
It's a double whammy for the Gazans. Strong wind and rain lashed a refugee camp in Khan Yunis. Residents worked to keep their temporary shelters standing. Plastic sheets used for the shelters' walls and roofs were whipped in the wind, and roofs which were whipped in the wind, while rain created large puddles on the ground between tents at the refugee camp in Khan Yunis. Now, camp inhabitants can be seen mending and strengthening their temporary homes as the bad weather hit the area. Some fixed wooden frames beneath plastic sheeting, while others dug trenches in the camp's passageways.
Now, the misery of Gazans, which has worsened in recent days with the arrival of winter as cold winds and driving rain tent camps, aid continues to trickle into the Gaza Strip from Egypt to provide aid to more than 2/3 of Gaza's population of 2.3 million who have fled their homes.
Moreover, according to the French president, France will send an airplane with more than 10 tons of medical supplies at the start of the week and will contribute to European Union medical aid flights. It is also preparing a second hospital ship which will arrive in Egypt in the coming days.
Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appealed to Muslim states with political ties with Israel to at least cut them for a limited time, weeks after he called for an Islamic oil and food embargo on Israel.
مسلمان توی مجامع و توی اظهارات و اینها محکوم میکنن گاهی، حالا بعضی محکوم هم نمیکنن، بمباران ها رو اینها رو بعضی محکوم میکنن. این کافی نیست. بایستی این جریان و شریان حیاتی رژیم صهیونیستی رو باید قطع کنن.
All right, viewers, staying with updates from the Israel-Hamas war. Now, the Qatari Prime Minister has said that a deal between Israel and Hamas on return of hostages is close to fruition.
Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman has said that his confidence is growing and that a deal will be reached soon. Sheikh Mohammed said that the challenges facing the agreement are just practical and logistical.
The deal is going through ups and downs from time to time throughout the last few weeks, but I think that I'm now more confident that we are close enough to reach to a deal that can bring the people safely back to their homes, whether they are the hostages on Hamas side or whatever the exchange that will happen will take place from the Israeli side.
This even as a member of Israel's war cabinet, Benny Gantz said that his priority is to get the hostages back. He added that Israel has decades if they needed to destroy Hamas, but the country does not have that much time to return the abducted people back home.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and the White House rejected a Washington Post report which claimed that Israel, US and Hamas had reached an agreement to release the hostages. It said a deal on release of hostages would happen in exchange for a 5-day pause in fighting.
Netanyahu also said that there is no deal on the table and that he cannot elaborate further. And according to reports, Hamas is ready to release 60 to 70 hostages. They demand a 5-day ceasefire. However, Israel is against this idea, as it claims Hamas will use the ceasefire to regroup.
ونقول للاحتلال الذي تجاوزت خسائره 180 دبابة وناقلة جند وآلية عسكرية ومئات القتلى والجرحى في صفوف جنوده وضباطه خلال أسبوعين فقط. نحن لازلنا في بداية المعركة ولازلنا في أول الطريق وأول الشوط، وإن القادم بإذن الله أكبر وأعظم.
Families of the hostages continue to pile pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister for their release.
Thousands of marchers, including relatives of more than 50 hostages held by Hamas, reached the Prime Minister's office on Saturday. However, on Friday, they had embarked on their fourth leg of a 5-day walk from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and called on the Israeli government to bring some 240 hostages home. Now, the marchers traversed 70 kilometers to Netanyahu's office and urged Israel's war cabinet to do more to rescue their loved ones.
Now, early in the war, Qatar negotiated a deal with Hamas to free 2 American Israeli hostages. A few days later, the militants released 2 elderly Israeli women, but since then, nothing substantial has happened.
You go with this one? You go with this lady? Okay.
All right, to discuss matters further, joining us on the broadcast right here on World DNA from Monterey, we have Professor James A. Russell. He is an associate professor in the Department of National Security at the Naval Postgraduate School. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have you here. Sir, the death toll has gone up to nearly 13,000. No ceasefire in sight. Israel has gone through northern Gaza, pretty much all through the northern side of Gaza. What's the end game here? If we just take a larger picture, where is this heading? What is Israel essentially trying to achieve? And where does it go from here?
Well, I can't speak for the Israeli government, obviously, but it appears as if what we are going to be left with at the end of Israeli military operations is a completely destroyed urban infrastructure throughout Gaza, in the north and the south. If we take a look around the Middle East, for example, after the wars, so to speak, in places like Tripoli and places like Fallujah, this is what we are confronting, where we're going to have a refugee population of 2.5 million people that are going to be needing care and feeding in the winter. There's going to be no infrastructure left. It's all going to be destroyed.
And as the humanitarian crisis deepens, Mr. Russell, I'd also like to ask you, with the latest report that's come in, that the Houthis have claimed to have seized an Israeli cargo ship in the southern Red Sea. However, Tel Aviv is denying that. Now, irrespective, this does kind of pose a threat to the war turning into a wider conflict. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on it are that, as the great German war strategist Karl von Clausewitz would remind us, is that when wars kick off, they take unpredictable turns and they develop a logic all of their own. And this clearly is a case in this war, in which the Houthis, for example, have emerged as this third party that's attempting to enter the conflict. U.S. naval vessels have shot down several drones and missiles coming from the Houthis towards Israel. And this latest step by the Houthis is just another example of their attempt to enter the conflict indirectly. And I should also add that again, as has been reported in the press, that Iran's proxies have been shelling U.S. military installations in Syria. So the point is that once the lead starts flying, as it has been, you get into unpredictable territory and with escalation potential, and that's what we're looking at.
Professor, are civilian casualties just an inevitable, unfortunate consequence of the actions which are going on? Was there any other way Israel could have gone into Gaza and to avoid any kind of civilian casualties, because they've also released footage, what they claim is another tunnel which was right under the Al-Shifa compound, which they have been claiming about since a while. Was there a better way to do it?
No. The short answer is no. I was frankly kind of distressed to hear the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, be calling, he was calling for a more sort of selective targeting approach. And in a war like this, it's really not possible. Again, I go back to this metaphor of looking at places like Tripoli, look at places like Fallujah, look at Aleppo. These places are being blasted apart by high caliber weapons that are being fired from relatively close ranges. And who bears the brunt of all of this carnage? It's innocent civilians. I'm frankly not interested in the tunnel complex or whether it exists or doesn't. We're getting all this, sort of sports event-like reporting on it. And the bottom line is that innocent civilians are on the receiving end of indiscriminate violence that are war crimes. This is what's going on from both sides, from Hamas and from Israel.
Professor, do you see a hostage deal in the works, as Qatar seems positive, but Israel does not really seem to have confirmed it?
Well, I can only repeat to you what I read in the press about it, which is that the press reports in the Washington Post, for example, seem to indicate that, quoting Israeli sources, that there was some kind of deal that was possible. And again, this gets back to this central issue. Innocent civilians shouldn't be part of this equation. and the hostages, I understand what Hamas is trying to do here, which is to bring visibility and attention onto the plight of the Palestinians. I think they've succeeded in doing that. But the point is, I'm not sure at this point what effect can be generated by continuing to hold these hostages, which are innocent civilians. They should give them up.
All right, Professor James Russell, always a pleasure to have you here on World DNA, getting all your insights on this, and hope to speak with you soon. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you very much.
Now, on Sunday, Houthis claimed to have seized an Israeli cargo ship in the southern Red Sea. However, Tel Aviv has denied the ownership of the vessel and said that there were no Israelis among its crew.
القوات البحرية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية في البحر الأحمر كان من نتائجها الاستيلاء على سفينة إسرائيلية واجتيادها إلى الساحل اليمني. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية تتعامل مع طاقم السفينة وفقا لتعاليم وقيم ديننا الإسلامي.
Renewing the threat to target all ships belonging to or dealing with Tel Aviv, the rebel group's spokesperson called on all countries whose citizens work in the Red Sea to stop any activity with Israeli ships or ships rented by Israelis.
And hours earlier, Israeli Defense Forces stated Houthis took control of the cargo ship near Yemen in the southern Red Sea, adding that the vessel was heading from Turkey to India. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces warned that the hijacking was a very grave incident with global consequences.
Now, as per media reports, the detained cargo ship is registered to a British company with partial ownership linked to an Israeli entrepreneur. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office said that the vessel was operated by a Japanese company which released it from a British company. The Prime Minister's office claimed that the ship was seized by the Iran-backed Houthi rebels at the request of Tehran. Iran has yet to respond to the accusations. Hamas, meanwhile, thanked the Yemeni rebels.
هذه خطوة مقدرة للجيش اليمني، وأنا أعتقد أن حجم الجريمة الصهيونية المرتكب في غزة يدفع كل مخلص وحريص إلى الدفاع عن الشعب الفلسطيني ونصرته بكل ما يستطيع، ولهذا التحية لهم، تحية أيضا للمقاومة في لبنان والمقاومة في العراق ولكل متظاهر في كل عاصمة من عواصم عالمنا العربي والإسلامي وعواصم العالم الأحرار الذين خرجوا في كل هذه العواصم يعلنون رفضهم للكذب الصهيوني ورفضهم للجريمة الصهيونية.
The Israeli military has deployed additional ships in the Red Sea to deal with threats from the Houthi rebels. And the Houthis have claimed repeated missile and drone attacks at Israel ever since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. The Yemeni rebels are considered one of the many possible new war fronts that could erupt during this crisis. Now, the Houthi militia has controlled much of Yemen's north, including the strategic Red Sea port city of Hodeidah, since civil war erupted in the late 2014.
All right, in other global news, Argentina has elected Javier Milei as its new president.
And the political newcomer ousted the long dominant coalition and its candidate, Sergio Massa. It was on his watch as economy minister that inflation soared by 143% and poverty level made a new record.
Now, congratulations and all messages of celebration they poured in for the newly elected president, and Brazilian President Lula da Silva was first to wish him good luck and success.
Now, this election comes at a difficult time for Argentina with rising inflation and economic crisis on people's mind. He was backed by those disenchanted with the long dominant coalition, and especially its failure to halt Argentina's cycle of deficit, borrowing, money printing and inflation. And Milei has pledged an economic shock therapy. His plans include dollarizing the economy and stopping trade with China. He has pledged to overhaul the economic and political status quo.
The 53-year-old economist with wild-looking hair, to say the least, and thick sideburns, of course he has a unique look, has drawn comparisons with former US President Donald Trump and Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro for his abrasive style and controversial remarks. He is also opposed to abortion, is pro-weapons, and does not believe humans are responsible for climate change. Now, most analysts are puzzled as to what he will actually do next, saying that most of his proposals are unrealistic and given his lack of power on Congress, even with his allies.
Now, the ground under the feet of Reconnaissance Peninsula's resident is shifting. Literally, thousands of earthquakes have rattled the area over the past month, and the movement is caused by the magma brewing just beneath the surface.
Now, these are clear signs of a volcanic eruption around the corner. The threat of the impending natural disaster has displaced about 4,000 people from the small fishing town of Grindavik. Last week, seismic activity and underground lava flows intensified, prompting authorities to begin immediate evacuations.
You see the big cracks everywhere, and all the houses are ruined. It's very sad because I'm born and raised there.
Now, as the roads and earth crack open in the area, people will be forced to stay away from their home, possibly for months. And despite the imminent threat of an eruption, evacuees have been granted access to Grindavik to retrieve personal belongings. Iceland's Prime Minister is also working on financial aid for the displaced.
The main issue now is to ensure that the people in Grindavik have salaries. They cannot go to work now in Grindavik, obviously. The main issue is also to ensure housing, and we have proposed a bill for the Parliament to ensure the salaries for the next 3 months, and we are working as fast as we can to ensure proper housing for those people.
Now, the magma beneath the cracks is rising, and the seismic activity has recently slightly decreased, both signs that the dormant volcano underneath the fishing town might break out within days.
And now it's time for a quick break. It's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Lots more on the other side as World DNA continues. On the other side, Donald Trump returns to the US-Mexico border as he promotes a hardline immigration agenda far more expansive than policies he pursued during his first term. We will tell you all about that when World DNA returns after this break.
Also on the other side, 9 days and 190 hours on rescue efforts continue at the Uttarakhand state. Responders are now considering opening a vertical shaft to free 41 men trapped in the collapsed tunnel. We will tell you all about this as well. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floor.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation. You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Coming right back, we of course brought you all the updates from the Israel-Hamas war. Now bringing you more updates from around the globe. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Israel's military releases security camera footage, claims that it shows hostages being brought into Al-Shifa hospital in the Gaza city on October 7 after being kidnapped during Hamas's attacks on southern Israel.
Hamas gunmen battle Israeli forces trying to push into Gaza's largest refugee camp. But despite the fighting, US and Israeli officials say a deal to free some of the hostages held in the besieged enclave is edging closer.
Argentina elects libertarian outsider Javier Milei as its new president, rolling the dice on an outsider with radical views to fix an economy battered by triple-digit inflation, a looming recession and rising poverty.
Former US First Lady Rosalind Carter, the wife of ex-President Jimmy Carter, dies at 96. The Carter Center confirms that she died peacefully with her family by her side.
And world number one Novak Djokovic wins a record 7th ATP Finals title with a dominant victory over home favourite Jannik Sinner. Former US President Donald Trump returned to the US-Mexico border for a visit as he promotes a hardline immigration agenda that would be far more expansive than the policies he pursued during his first term as the president.
Now, before making remarks in Edinburgh, Texas, Trump served meals to Texan National Guard soldiers, troopers and others who will be stationed at the border over Thanksgiving. Now, he was joined by longtime ally Greg Abbott, the Republican governor, who endorsed the frontrunner for the 2024 nomination during the visit. Abbott said Biden's border policies pose a danger to communities across the United States. He credited Donald Trump with cutting border crossings to the lowest point in decades during his presidency. Trump and Abbott handed out tacos while the former president shook hands and posed for photographs here as well.
Now, Trump has been laying out immigration proposals that would mark a dramatic escalation of the approach he used in office, which drew alarms from civil rights activists and numerous court challenges.
Recently, the state of Texas passed a law which will make entry into the state without papers a crime and a violation, being punishable with 2 years in jail or up to 20 years if the person refuses to leave United States.
And in his campaigns, Trump has vowed a tougher crackdown on illegal migration, and reports claim that his plans may involve detention camps and mass deportations. Trump and Abbott blame President Joe Biden for the current migrant crisis. Texas is considered a reliable conservative base for Donald Trump.
Never justification for terrorist attacks.
Updates from India. Over 9 days and 190 hours have passed. A race against time. Indian rescuers are considering opening a vertical shaft to free 41 men trapped in a collapsed tunnel.
Yeah, and the drilling at the site was paused earlier over fears of further cavings, and rescue efforts have now stretched into the second week.
Excavators have been removing earth, concrete and rubble from the under-construction tunnel in the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand since last Sunday. Rescue efforts have been slowed by falling debris and breakdowns of the crucial heavy drilling machines, with the Air Force having to twice airlift in new kit. Drilling through the tons of debris was paused late Friday after a cracking sound created a panic situation there. The Indian government's highways and infrastructure company said operations were then halted due to the possibility of further collapse.
Now, after visiting the site, Nitin Gadkari, Minister of Road, Transport and Highways, stated that every possible effort is being made. And he also said if drilling machine was fixed, they could reach the men by Tuesday. But teams were also considering multiple alternative routes. Relatives of those trapped who spoke to the men via radio said conditions were grim and morale was low. The union government has finalized a 5-option action plan now.
Engineers had been trying to horizontally drive a steel pipe about 90 centimeters wide through the debris, enough for the trapped men to squeeze through. Now, teams are now considering digging an entirely new shaft, including one from above, that could involve digging down more than 100 meters, but a track would have to be constructed to even bring the heavy diggers to the site.
And rescuers have been communicating with the trapped workers by radio. Food, water, oxygen and medicine have been sent via a 15-centimeter wide pipe.
Experts have warned about the impact of extensive construction in Uttarakhand, where large parts of the state are prone to landslides. Villagers have set up a Hindu temple at the mouth of the tunnel to Boknag, saying the original temple had been moved during construction. Now, some villagers told reporters they blamed the tunnel collapse on the fact that the initial temple was moved.
Now, getting you some updates from the world of business. France, Germany and Italy have reached an agreement how to regulate artificial intelligence, and according to media reports, the agreement is expected to hasten negotiations for AI legislation at the European Union level.
The three governments are in favour of binding voluntary commitments for both large and small AI providers in the European Union. Now, the European Commission, the European Parliament and the EU Council are currently negotiating how the bloc should position itself in this new field. Earlier this year, the European Parliament presented an AI Act designed to contain the risks of AI applications and avoid discriminatory effects while harnessing the innovative power of AI. During the discussions, the European Parliament proposed that the Code of Conduct should initially only be binding for major AI providers, which are primarily from the US.
Meanwhile, 3 EU governments have warned against this apparent competitive advantage for smaller European providers, and they also fear that this could lead to less trust in the security of these smaller providers, which could lead to fewer customers.
All right, on a global scale, retail sales have experienced an unexpected dip, marking the lowest level since the 2021 COVID-19 lockdowns.
And this downturn echoes a broader narrative. suggesting a shared challenge faced by economies worldwide. Take a look at our next report to know more.
The pulse of economic activity, retail sales, serves as a key barometer of the consumer confidence and overall market health. These sales figures capture the dynamic interplay of consumer behavior, market trends, and economics. This report is a snapshot of the retail trends across 4 major markets. UK retail sales have unexpectedly dropped by 0.3%, hitting the lowest level since February 2021. The figures coincide with a stagnant economy, evident in the flatline gross domestic product from July to September. Rising fuel prices have impacted a demand for various goods as the cost of living monster eats people's savings. Retailers have noted a shift in consumer behavior, with increased food purchases in supermarkets but a decline in specialty stores. U.S. retail and food services sales have dipped 0.1% as consumers scale back spending, anticipating better promotions in November and December. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has noted a slowdown in inflation after a 0.4% rise in September. Inflation, however, remains a concern. A survey data shows that 64% of consumers prioritize price and value in-store selection during the Thanksgiving season. Europe has witnessed a minor contraction in retail trade volumes across the euro area and the European Union. The 0.3 decline in September surpassed market expectations, but it also hints at a slow rate of economic recovery. In October, China's retail sales exceeded expectations, growing by 7.6% compared to the same period last year. The positive performance of the retail sector contrasts with the challenges posed by the realty sector, which threatens to drag the Chinese economy. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, over to updates from the world of sport. The Australian cricket team has broken the hearts of 1.4 billion Indians on their way to a record-extending 6th ODI World Cup title.
Travis Head scored a memorable century to take the Aussies to a comfortable 6-wicket win over hosts India at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad.
Well, the loss means that India's wait for an ICC trophy since 2013, since 2011, it still continues. Now, Australia's skipper Pat Cummins won the toss and elected to field first on a slow pitch. Rohit Sharma once again gave India a brisk start, but Shubman Gill fell early to Mitchell Starc. Virat Kohli came out with intent and smoked Starc for 3 back-to-back boundaries. Sharma and Kohli shared a stand of 46 runs before Australia dealt a double blow to the men in blue. Sharma fell for 47 in the 10th over, and 3 balls later, Shreyas Iyer was dismissed as well for 4. India were on the back foot with 82 for 3 in 11 overs. Kohli and KL Rahul started to rebuild the innings with a stand of 67 runs, but Kohli departed soon after completing his half-century.
Rahul too completed his 50 but got out on 66, leaving India reeling on to a 3 for 6 in the 42nd over. The men in blue could only manage to hit 2 boundaries in between the 10th and 40th over. 6 Indian batters could not get into double figures as India were bowled out for the first time in this edition for 240.
Now, the Aussies came out all guns blazing and scored 15 runs in the first over, but Mohammad Shami dismissed David Warner in the very next over. Jasprit Bumrah then got Mitchell Marsh and Stephen Smith out in his consecutive overs, and Travis Head and Marnus and Labuschagne stabilized the ship and slowly took the match away from India. Head completed his half-century in 58 balls with 111 runs on the board in the 22nd over. The southpaw switched gears and raced away to his century in 95 balls. Head, who was the player of the match in the semi-final, scored 137 runs off 120 balls before being dismissed by Mohammad Siraj.
Labuschagne, who played the perfect second fiddle, remained unbeaten on 58 and completed the formalities in the 43rd over along with Glenn Maxwell.
disappointed Indian fans stream past me, their hopes and dreams dashed yet again. Australia's big match mentality has carried them through yet again. This is perhaps their greatest World Cup triumph, even eclipsing the 1999 win at Lord's. In Ahmedabad, with video journalist Neeraj Patel, this is Digvijay Singhdeo for WION.
Now, Australia have stunned India to be crowned world champion for a record-extending 6th time, and Australia dominated the final in Ahmedabad, with Travis Head scoring a magnificent century.
The 1996 World Cup winning coach Dav Watmore, who is also a former Australia international, breaks down the result with WION's Isha Hanspal. Listen to this.
What do you think happened there, Dav? We can attribute this loss of India's to various factors, but what were the main things that stuck out for you?
Well, my observation was that nearly every game India played in this series, apart from that pitch in Lucknow, when they were bowled out 230 or 239, and they won the match convincingly too against England. Every other surface they played on, they absolutely eclipsed the opposition. On good surfaces, they're good batsmen, and their bowling attack is really good. And I was really surprised to see this dry pitch that was very difficult to bat on early on, in the first half rather. And it was a game of two halves, and once that dew got a little bit, once the dew came in, it became a lot easier to bat. But that first 10 overs was, like Australia lost 3 wickets for 60 runs. So, okay, they got 60, but they also lost 3 wickets and didn't lose another one until just before the end of the game. So that shows you how much it eased up during the course of the night.
Dav, would you also say that one of the other contributing factors was probably India underestimating their own ability, their own strengths, and getting played into the hands of the Aussies and playing as per their weaknesses, as you pointed out early? Do you think that was a major factor, as we saw in the case of Shami coming in to bowl first up instead of Siraj?
Well, that's right. I'm turning my head around and thinking, and why would they do that? Well, they must have seen what I saw when Australia played in the semi-final against South Africa, when they really struggled to get over the line facing spin bowling. Maharaj, Shamsi, Markram. And I'm sure and plus let's not forget the very first game India played against Australia in Chennai, spin. So I'm pretty sure that the Indians would have been looking forward to, having their way against the opposition with spin.
With spin, with the famed attack.
But it just didn't work out because they lost the toss. Now, I'm also I feel confident that normally an Australian team wins the toss and bats first and then protects the total. And maybe they thought they would do similarly, but it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So it became really, difficult. They almost beat themselves. And then I was also surprised to see the opening attack changed. Shami, who was doing so well, coming at first change, taking the new ball with Bumrah. Okay, he got a wicket, but he was expensive. And that was in stark contrast to what he's been doing in the previous 7 matches.
All right, shifting tracks to tennis now. World number 1 Novak Djokovic, another feather to his cap.
The 24-time Grand Slam champion surpassed Roger Federer to win the most titles at the ATP finals after defeating home favourite Jannik Sinner in the finals in Turin.
Now, in a ruthless, Djokovic saw off Sinner in front of the home crowd with a dominant straight sets win after having previously lost to the Italian in the group stage match. The opening set was marked by the Serb's incredible service. He dropped only 2 points on serve and broke the Italian once in the 4th game. Now, the second set began with Djokovic securing an early break in the first game. The world number 1 won the first 10 points of the set, taking a 2-0 lead. Sinner saved 3 breakpoints in the third game, and the 22-year-old had his first breakpoint chance in the 6th but couldn't capitalize.
The 36-year-old took 1 hour and 43 minutes to win the title 6-3, 6-3.
All right, as always on World DNA After Sports, we get you a glimpse of all that's happening in the world of showbiz. Alison Lagrange takes it away.
Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. First up, let's get you the big stories from the world of entertainment.
Veteran actress Suzanne Shepard, known for playing the mother of Eddie Falco's Carmela Soprano on The Sopranos, has died at the age of 89. The cause of her death has not been determined yet. According to reports, she was suffering from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Shepard has appeared in several iconic movies in her decade-spanning career. She was known for starring in films such as Goodfellas, Requiem for a Dream, and Mystic Pizza. Fans of the Rocky franchise will be delighted to know that a 4th Creed film is in the development. Franchise producer Irvin Winkler revealed that actor Michael B. Jordan is all set to direct the upcoming installment. Jordan made his directorial debut with Creed 3. He also starred as heavyweight champion Adonis Creed in the Rocky spin-off films. Actor Sylvester Stallone reprised his role as Rocky Balboa in the first 2 Creed films. He was seen mentoring Adonis, the son of his old opponent Apollo Creed. However, it is yet to be seen if he will star in the upcoming film. The odds seem to have been in the favor of the Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The prequel to the highly successful Hunger Games franchise performed well over the busy box office weekend in the United States, despite falling slightly behind expectations. It raked in $44 million domestically and $98 million globally during its opening weekend. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is the original story of President Coriolanus Snow. It follows an 18-year-old Snow as he mentors a tribute during the 10th annual Hunger Games.
Gone are the days when video game movies failed to work at the box office. If the recent trend is anything to go by, the film industry is welcoming the adaptations with open arms and impressive numbers. More details in our next report.
Have you wondered how you could have found such a treasure?
If movies like Prince of Persia,
I've seen its power with my own eyes.
Max Payne, and Warcraft have taught us anything,
No, but with the humans' help.
it is that Hollywood isn't very welcoming of video game adaptations. But the last few years have been a game changer for such stories, as it seems that the film and TV industry have finally cracked the code for successfully adapting them to the big screen. This might beg the question, what has changed over the past few years? Well, video games have changed drastically recently. They've become so cinematic in their scope and storytelling that some of them have ended up overshadowing traditional films in terms of ambition. It is no surprise that streaming platforms have started to heavily invest in securing the rights of popular games, with the hopes of churning out the next box office hit. The recent success of Five Nights at Freddy's, a movie adaptation of the 2014 game, has once again established the popularity of video games in Hollywood.
In the 80s, kids went missing.
Keep going for family.
Several other films and TV shows have put video game adaptations back on the map. The Last of Us, which released earlier this year, was one such series that helped redeem the video game genre. The acclaimed HBO show stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey and is based on the Sony action-adventure game of the same name, Dollars globally. There is no denying that 2023 has been a banner year for video game adaptations. The redemption arc of video game genre has pushed creators to pick up more such projects. Nintendo is partnering with Sony to develop a live-action film based on the Legend of Zelda franchise. Not just that, an animation adaptation of the 2022 hit video game Stray is already in the works. It's safe to say that video game adaptations have little left to prove, while releases from the last few years have unlocked new levels of success.
Only the dagger can unlock the sands of time.
Hollywood still has a lot to pick up from the gaming industry.
Time will erase everything.
That's all for me for today. For now, it's back to our New Delhi studio.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. News and updates continue on the other side. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again tomorrow.
India's global voice.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
And thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Chand. Now we're tracking everything that's happening all over the globe, starting right from the Israel-Hamas war, the rescue operations going on in the Uttarakhand state in India. We're tracking all the latest. Let's get you started with the headlines. Israel releases video of what it claims is a tunnel dug by Palestinian militants under the Gaza Strip. The biggest hospital at the Gaza Strip, which is the Al-Shifa Hospital. Hamas gunmen battle Israeli forces trying to push into Gaza's largest refugee camp. But despite the fighting, US and Israeli officials say a deal to free some of the hostages held in the besieged enclave is edging closer. Argentina elects libertarian outsider Javier Milei as its new president, rolling the dice on an outsider with radical views to fix an economy battered by triple-digit inflation, a looming recession and rising poverty. Joe Biden turns 81 as voters show concern about age ahead of the 2024 US polls. 74% of people say Biden would be too old to serve a second term, compared to 50% for Trump, which shows a recent ABC Washington Post poll. Over 9 days and 190 hours later, a race against time, the Indian rescuers consider opening a vertical shaft to free 41 men trapped in a collapsed tunnel in Uttarakhand state of India. Australia have broken the hearts of 1.4 billion Indians to claim an unprecedented 6th World Cup title. Travis Head scored a century in the final to take Australia to a 6-wicket victory in Ahmedabad. Now, the Israel-Hamas conflict escalates with every passing minute, and there's no end in sight even now. In Gaza, the number of civilian casualties is increasing every day. In the latest, a large explosion and flying flares were seen over the Gaza Strip as the battle between Israel and Hamas, it rages on. Now, the images captured are reportedly of heavy clashes in northern Gaza. The source of the explosion or the flares have not yet been confirmed. 31 premature babies have been safely transferred from Gaza's main hospital to another hospital in the south. The joint operation by the United Nations and the Palestinian Red Crescent moved the babies in incubators to Rafah near the border crossing into Egypt. This comes as the fate of the newborns at Al-Shifa Hospital captured global attention after the release of images showing doctors trying to keep them warm. According to Gaza health officials, the babies will be moved to Egypt after they are stabilized in Rafah. The health officials further added that 8 premature babies had died in Al-Shifa due to lack of power and medicines.
نحن الآن وبعد يعني ساعات من العناء والتنسيق وصل الطاقم الطبي، وصل طبيب، ووصل التمريض الأربعة الذين كانوا موجودين معهم، والعدد النهائي الذي وصلنا 31 طفل. هم كانوا بالأساس 39، استشهد منهم 8 أطفال، كان آخرهم هذا الصباح 2 في مجمع الشفاء الطبي. الآن في منهم حالتهم حرجة، تم وضع واحد منهم الآن على.
On the other hand, Israel has published video of what it described as a tunnel dug by Palestinian militants under the Gaza Strip's biggest hospital. The Israeli military said it discovered a 55-meter tunnel which was 33 feet underneath the Al-Shifa hospital complex. Further adding that the tunnel complex included a staircase, a blast-proof door and a firing hole that could be used by snipers to block Israeli forces from entering. Now, the Al-Shifa hospital has become a focal point for Israel's subsequent military operations in the Gaza Strip. Now, Israel's military has released security camera footage where it claims to show hostages being brought into the hospital on the 7th of October after being kidnapped during Hamas attacks on southern Israel.
This is 7th of October, 10:55 a.m. The evidence I will share was sent by Israel to diplomatic channels to the countries of those civilians. Here you can see Hamas taking a hostage inside the vicinity. He even doesn't look need a treatment, but they're taking him inside the hospital. I will now share this video that shows the same hostage entering into the hospital with a gunman, terrorist, inside the hospital. This is the main entrance of the hospital.
Now, as the war between Israel and Hamas militants rages into the 7th week, Gazans mourned the death of Palestinian journalist Hassouna Slim, who was among 31 people killed in an Israeli airstrike on a home in central Gaza. Another local journalist, Sari Mansour, was also killed in the strike. It's a double whammy for the Gazans. Strong wind and rain lashed a refugee camp in Khan Yunis. Residents worked to keep their temporary shelter standing. Plastic sheets used for the shelter's walls and roofs were whipped in the wind, while rain created large puddles on the ground between tents at the refugee camp in Khan Yunis. Camp inhabitants can be seen mending and strengthening their temporary homes as the bad weather hit the area. Some fixed wooden frames beneath plastic sheeting, while others dug trenches in the camp's passageways. Now, the misery of Gazans, which has worsened in recent days with the arrival of winter as cold winds and driving rain tent camps. Aid continues to trickle into the Gaza Strip from Egypt to provide aid to more than 2/3 of Gaza's population of 2.3 million who have fled their homes. Moreover, according to the French President Emmanuel Macron's office, France will send an airplane with more than 10 tons of medical supplies at the start of the week and will contribute to European Union medical aid flights. It is also preparing a second hospital ship, which will arrive in Egypt in coming days. Now,